Hey guys, RoscoeRyan521 here, and welcome to a video I've been looking forward to doing for a long time now. This is going to be counting down my top 50 favorite movies of all time. And this video is going to be divided into 5 segments, 50 through 40, 40 through 30, 30 through 20, 20 through 10, and then 10 through 1. And like I said, this section will only be 1/5 of the list because I feel like I'm gonna want to talk a lot about each of these individual movies. Some movies I can go on for a few minutes for, some I can only talk 30 seconds about because maybe I've only seen them once, or there's really not a lot to say. It's just a movie I really enjoy for reasons that I can explain within 30 seconds. So I'm kind of testing out to see how long this part's gonna be, and then we'll see where to go from there. But really quickly, before we start this list and dive into number 50, I want to put up my list of movies on the screen right now. So all these movies you see right here, these could either be honorable mentions, or these are movies that I have only seen once, and I have not taken the time to watch a second time, but I feel like if I did watch them a second time, I would appreciate them a lot more, and there's a good chance they would be on the list. Although, because I haven't watched them again yet, I can't determine whether or not they would be. So, just there's that list for you. If there's a movie that I said I liked in the past, but it's not on the list, it'll probably be on this list. Let's jump into number 50. So, starting out at number 50, we have Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpiece, There Will Be Blood. Now, I feel like this movie gets a lot of controversy. A lot of people they don't know what to think of it. Some people claim it to be boring. Some people think, oh yeah, well, Daniel Day-Lewis is kind of the only redeeming quality of this movie. I would disagree. While I do agree that the plot in this movie does move a tad slow at times, and there's large chunks of this movie where not a lot is really happening. Overall, this is such an interesting character study that something about it, I just loved it by the end of it. While I was possibly, it's been a few months since I've watched it, so I don't remember specifically, but I think I may have been bored during a few scenes, but by the end, I just remember thinking, that was an amazing movie. Like, this is a fantastic character study. Daniel Day-Lewis, while the movie has more than him going for it, he does carry it. Paul Dano does a great job too, especially the scene where, he makes him confess to being a sinner. Fantastic acting. And the ending is amazing too. If you guys seen it, I'm talking about, I'm finished. But yeah, so just a fantastic movie, and not the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie you will see on this list. More on that later. At number 49, we have Chronicle. This is a really interesting movie to me. This is one of the first movies that I saw, and I just remember coming out of the theater thinking, like, why is nobody talking about this movie? I love this movie. This movie is amazing. It's essentially, you guys know, it's kind of what... I wouldn't say it re-sparked the found footage genre. I think Paranormal Activity did that. But it definitely took an interesting approach with it. It made it so... It was, I think, the first found footage movie that wasn't, like, horror-based, you know what I mean? And essentially, three teenagers stumble in this hole in the woods, and they get these telekinesis powers, and one of the main kids, who was played by Dane DeHaan, is abused at home by his stepdad, or it might have been his real dad, I don't remember, and he's bullied a lot at school, and of course he kind of becomes a supervillain. It's a really interesting, like, origin story for, like a supervillain point of view. I think that's a really interesting concept that they tackle, and it also had, a really great role by, Michael B. Jordan before he became really famous. Playing Apollo Creed's son and whatnot. But yeah, this is just a really interesting found footage movie. It doesn't really do anything groundbreaking. The effects are pretty good, and it has an awesome final fight. It's just, like I said, it's a fun... Well, it's not really a fun movie because it's very dark and it is kind of hard to watch. But it's just a really interesting movie, I would say. I think interesting is probably the best word to describe it. So number 49 is Chronicle. At number 48, we have Finding Nemo. Now, Finding Nemo is my favorite animated movie of all time. I was debating whether or not to put this or The Lion King. They were neck and neck. But I decided on Finding Nemo because I grew up with it. Fun little fact, it was actually the very first movie I was ever taken to see in the theaters. And yeah, overall, it's a really neat, father-son bonding story, about, Marlin trying to find his son, and then Dory is a great side character. They even did a good job with Finding Dory, I think. But Finding Nemo will always reign supreme. It will always be my favorite Pixar movie of all time, I think. As much as I like Toy Story, as much as I like, some of the other ones. Wasn't that crazy about WALL-E, but, Up was pretty good. But yeah, out of all of them, I still think Finding Nemo is without a doubt Pixar's masterpiece, and those effects are just phenomenal. Oh my god. I don't remember if this won Best Animated Feature, but if it didn't, it definitely deserved it, because those underwater effects are just unreal. At number 47, we have Sky High. Yes, I promise we're almost done with the kids' movies here. But Sky High is on here purely for nostalgia reasons. I grew up watching this movie. I was big into superheroes when I was a kid. I mean, I still like them, but I was just crazy about superheroes when I was younger. And this movie, it came out at just the right time for me. You know, it's like Disney's take on the superhero genre before the superhero genre became really big. You know, if I could describe it best, it's like, The Incredibles meets like Harry Potter meets like the MCU. You know, it's like a superhero academy for kids of famous superheroes around the world. So it's a really fun movie. I'm not usually a Disney movie fan, but I'm not usually a fan of like Disney live action movies. They tend to be crap most of the time. But this one was done really well. It has some good star power with Kurt Russell and Mary Elizabeth Winstead and my man Bruce Campbell, who we'll talk about more later. But just, yeah, really fun, introduction, kind of like, an introduction to the superhero genre for, younger kids, and it certainly got me interested in them as well. I love this movie, and it still holds up today. I watched it maybe about a year ago. It still holds up. Awesome movie. And now transitioning from a Disney movie to one of the raunchiest comedies in recent memory, at number 46 we have The Hangover. The Hangover, what is there to say? This movie is just flat out hilarious. It's mainly the only reason it's on this list. The Wolfpack, Zach Galifianakis, Ed Helms, and Ed Helms, and Bradley Cooper. His name was escaping me for a sec. They make such a fantastic trio in this movie. They're trying to retrace their steps and everything, and there's so many funny scenarios. It's one of those movies I can just say over and over, oh, it's so funny, but you have to experience it, you have to watch it, because this movie's just a blast from start to finish. 2, I didn't really care for as much. 2, I thought was more or less kind of just the same as this one, just not as funny. And 3, I thought was decent. 3 was at least a step up from 2. So, the trilogy overall is decent, but this one is really the only must-see. And if you're a fan of raunchy comedies, I really do mean it when I say must-see. This movie is flat out hilarious. At number 45, we have The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I promise you guys, the entire list isn't just made up of dumb comedies. I try to get some of the stupid movies, out of the way first, so that way we can focus on the really great movies in the next 40. But this bottom 10 is filled with some pretty dumb comedies. But this one is dumb, but it's funny dumb. This movie is just flat out hilarious. Steve Carell does such a great job playing that, the lovable idiot. His friends Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd are great in their supporting roles, and the one black guy who is hilarious, but I apologize for not knowing the actor's name. But they all do such a great job together, them trying to get, Steve Carell laid, like the title suggests, he is a 40-year-old virgin, and, just, like, a lot of funny circumstances in this movie, especially that waxing scene, which was actually real. Steve Carell actually did get waxed in that scene, like in real life, and then some of his exclamations, oh, Kelly Clarkson, some of the stuff he yelled out, it's a really funny movie, and it kind of pokes fun at, like, him being a nerd, and me being kind of a nerd throughout the movie, especially with him, like, painting his little figurines, and then me, doing my Lego painting and stuff. So there's some jokes that I can kind of relate to in it. So, just a really funny movie overall, with a heartwarming ending, too. And one of the best musical numbers during the credits I've ever seen. It's just flat out hilarious. You gotta see it to believe it. Check it out, 40-Year-Old Virgin, hilarious. At number 44, we have The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This movie is... I wish I could put it higher on my list. I just can't, though, because I've only seen it once. But this is probably one of the best, if not the best, Western I've ever seen. It's been a while since I've seen Josie Wales. I haven't watched Tombstone in a few years. So, don't hold me to that. But based on recent memory, I would say that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is my favorite Western of all time. The entire trilogy, the entire Dollars trilogy is great. For a few dollars more it comes close to this, but this movie is a flat-out masterpiece, even more so than for a few dollars more. You got Clint, of course, just being Clint Eastwood, of course, like always. And then The Bad, the Ugly, Blondie, Tuco, and the third one, I can't remember his name. But yeah, just a, really, really awesome score by Ennio Morricone as well. And this movie, from what I understand, was kind of the final movie of the spaghetti western era of Hollywood, or at least it was one of the final movies. And at least they went out on a bang. At least they went out on what IMDb claims to be one of the top 10 best movies of all time. I do believe this is in the top 10 of the top 250. And yeah, just love it. It's a really long movie. I will say this though, like I said, I've only seen it once, so maybe if I watch it again, I'll feel differently. But the one time I saw it, I always thought that the Civil War scene, you know, they run across a Civil War battle towards the end of the movie, Blondie and Tuco, I think that should have been taken out of the movie. I don't know, you guys can elaborate or whatever in the comments, but I was watching the movie and I was like, okay, the Civil War thing's going on for a little too long. I don't know, I didn't really care for it that much, but other than that scene, I think this entire movie is just a masterpiece. Amazing shots, amazing score, amazing acting from Clint Eastwood, and yeah, just a really great, fun Western movie. At number 43, we have a movie from my childhood, Short Circuit. This movie is, once again, I know I say this a lot, but this movie is just a lot of fun. It really is. Just a nice, fun, family, you know, comedy about a robot gets struck by lightning, is convinced that he is alive, and is basically trying to run away from the government who's trying to reprogram him, or disassemble him. It's basically, it's kind of, you know, the second half of this movie is kind of like if E.T. were a robot, you know, but it's just a lot of fun seeing him interact, you know, with the human world and everything, you know, and you know, his expanded vocabulary and everything, you know, every time he says a word, or the human says a word, he'll list like a bunch of synonyms for that word. It's something about it's just really funny to me. Johnny Five is the king of movie robots. Yeah, move over, Wally. Johnny, you ain't got nothing on Johnny Five. Johnny Five is hilarious. Short Circuit 2 ain't bad either. It's a great sequel. And just a really fun 80s comedy. Love it. At number 42 is one of the most heartfelt movies I've ever seen about family, and it is Warrior. Now, this movie stars Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton, excuse me, and Nick Nolte as the recovering alcoholic father. Basically what this is Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton are two estranged brothers, and they both enter this MMA tournament for their own personal reasons. You know, Tom Hardy because he's angry at the world, you know, he served in the war and he saw a lot of his friends die, and he's angry, so he's basically fighting to let go of his anger. Joel Edgerton is a teacher, a teacher struggling to, you know, keep his house, and he's trying to make money on the side, so he enters it for his family, essentially. And, of course, this isn't really a spoiler. I mean, it is a spoiler, kind of, but you know what's going to happen in a movie like this. Basically, it comes down to these two. These two are the last two in this MMA tournament, and they have to fight in the very end of the movie. And Nick Nolte is kind of trying to put his family back together, but to no avail. You know, Joel Edgerton wants nothing to do with him. Tom Hardy thinks he's a failure. Just overall, this movie is very powerful. I expected it to just be this dumb MMA fighting, you know, guy movie, but it's really not that at all. It has a lot of heart to it. And the ending with the song About Today by The National playing is one of my favorite movie endings of all time. It's really touching. It's a really beautiful ending, and overall, I really think this might be Tom Hardy's one of his best roles, if not his best role. You know, I mean, he was great as Bane, of course. He was great as Bronson. He was great as Mad Max. But this might be my favorite role by him because he shows a lot of range, I think, in this movie. So yeah, Warrior, definitely check it out. At number 41, we have, without a doubt, the most emotional movie I've ever seen, and this is The Green Mile. Now, this movie, of course, stars Tom Hanks and Michael Clarke Duncan. Michael Clarke Duncan is kind of the gentle giant character who's on death row for, being falsely accused of murdering these two girls. A lot of religious symbolism. This movie is kind of a fantasy. It kind of makes, or it implies that John Coffey, Michael Clarke Duncan, is essentially Jesus Christ, and he's being wrongfully convicted. A lot of religious symbolism in this movie. It's a Stephen King story. Tom Hanks is the warden on death row. I won't spoil the ending, guys. The ending to this movie just makes me furious. It just makes me angry. It makes me sad. It just, because I know it's just a movie, but it's one of those things where it's like you think, injustice like this really does happen in the world all the time, and it's not fair, and it's never going to be fair, and just something about the ending of this movie just really hits me hard. I struggle every single time I watch it. I haven't watched the full movie in a while, but every time I've seen the ending a few times. I've caught it on cable, and every time I see this ending, I feel this huge mixture of, sadness and, just, anger at the same time. It's a really emotionally heavy ending for me, and like I said, the most emotional I've ever gotten in a movie. I've never cried in a movie, but I have come close. I've teared up, I think, the first time I saw this. So a really great performance by Tom Hanks, and of course Michael Clarke Duncan too. Rip, rest in peace, amazing actor. Really sad that he's gone, but at least he gave us this masterpiece. And people ask which, people, are kind of debate which is better, the Shawshank Redemption or the Green Mile. A lot of people say Shawshank. Personally, for me, I think Shawshank is probably a better made movie. But the Green Mile is my personal favorite, of the two. I just think this movie is more so of a masterpiece, and I think it stays with you longer than Shawshank Redemption does as well. So, yeah, the Green Mile, a really emotionally powerful movie, but definitely worth it if you can watch it sometime. And number 40, to close out this video, we have Leon the Professional. Now, this movie should be a lot higher, but it's been a few years since I've watched it. But I've only seen this movie 3 times, I think, and all 3 of those times have been, like the last time was, years ago, probably 2-3 years ago. But every single time I've watched this movie, I've loved it and loved it even more, and even though I barely remember it right now, I'm struggling to remember a lot of what happens in it, I still know it has to be on my list because it's just so well made. Luc Besson is the director. He also made the really fun The Fifth Element and that new Valerian movie that nobody's talking about. But yeah, he directed this movie really well. Is it Jean Reno? Is that the guy that plays Leon? He does a fantastic job. If I got the name wrong, I'll put an annotation or something in there correcting myself. Natalie Portman, oh my god, you just know this actor. You know she's gonna go far when you see her in this movie. She does such an incredible job as a kid actress, especially playing Leon's prodigy, so to speak, after her family gets murdered. Gary Oldman does a fantastic job as the movie's villain, and it's just overall, it's a really it has a lot of heart to it as well. The bond between the father-daughter bond between Leon and Natalie Portman's character is just really something special, and they all knocked it out of the park with this movie. It's amazing. I love it. So that's it for part 1, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Part 2 will be coming out very soon. I want to record these all at the same time and then release them back to back. I don't want a week span to go by in between parts. I want to release these within a few days of each other. But yeah, let me know if any of your favorite movies were on this list. Let me know what you think of the list so far down in the comments. And like I said, I will see you guys in part 2. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.